it typically involves some kind of awakening, saying, "Look, my life has been a lie. This fiat, I was stuck in the matrix. I was maybe I was hopeless. I was in despair, looking at all the all this violence around me, all this waste, all of this desperation around me. But then I found Bitcoin. I began to understand the world a lot better, and now I have hope. Right, I'm not despairing anymore, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to build this better world."
Welcome to the Bitcoin Business Podcast put on by Sovereign. Today we have Nostr legend and raconteur, I will call you, Avi. Avi Burra has joined us. Avi is one of the people in this space that he came over with sort of that class post Jack Dorsey funding on Nostr, the late 22 class, where we were all kind of trying to figure it out together. It was all a very small group of people, and actually the hashtag plebchain, which his podcast is called Plebchain Radio, was a way for us to sort of coordinate meeting people on there. It was a very unique time. No one knew who to follow. No one knew who to look for. No one really knew what they were doing. You actually had to upload images to a website that would host images and then link to that to even be able to display anything as your profile picture. I remember when profile pictures came around, that was a big deal on Nostr. So Avi and I have been digitally communicating for a long time. Avi has been putting out content for a long time on Nostr. Avi and I had the pleasure of meeting in person finally at BTC Prague. We missed each other. I was looking for you in Miami in 2023 down on the beach, but for the Nostr party. But it was such a crazy time down there that it was dark and everyone was having a good time, and there were way too many people there. And as someone who comes from blue state Illinois, I was shocked we were allowed to be on the beach doing what we were doing without getting hogtied and thrown in a jail somewhere.
Black.
But
Yeah.
bit of a ambling intro here, but I really wanted to provide some background for Avi, and he's actually someone. There's very few people in this space that are really truly skilled and gifted at creating, orating, these sorts of things. There's plenty of amazing devs. There's plenty of great finance minds. There's plenty of great chart bros out there and everything like that. But it's few and far between you find someone. And there's even people who are great at putting content out. There's people with great podcasts that I love to listen to, that I really enjoy, that put out good stuff, that put out interesting things, that talk about a lot of cool stuff. But there's very few people that are truly gifted with a creative spirit like you, Avi. And so thank you for joining me today. And I know you didn't know I was going to mildly fillet you at the beginning here, but I wanted to get that out because I really do respect your work and what you do. And I find myself moved and looking to expound further on ideas that you present. So I'm really thankful for what you're doing out in the space, and welcome to the show.
Wow, that was quite the intro. Thrilled to be here, Brandon. Sadly, after that intro, it's going to be downhill from here, my friend, because I don't think I can live up to that after those kind words. No, happy to be here. Enjoyed all of our digital communications, and really was a pleasure hanging out in Prague last year.
I'm also pissed because it was like 75 degrees 2 days ago. It was almost 70 yesterday. And I was hoping I would actually get to do this podcast and smoke a cigar while recording with
Mm.
you. But alas, it's Chicago and it's 35 degrees colder than it was yesterday. And it's super windy outside. And going outside to smoke a cigar during this podcast would not be a good idea. So.
Indeed.
But so Avi, we were talking about this off the air, and it was something I actually had to get into on on my list in my head. I don't actually write things down, which is probably why this show is not as good as it could be. However, I was thinking about this myself, and you were talking about sort of the content that Bitcoiners look to engage with, are willing to pay for this, the value for value model. And I've been, I have lots of thoughts of my own, but why don't you begin with what you started talking about, and let's
Yeah.
get into this topic, and how you've been sort of reshaping your thoughts along these lines recently.
Yeah, this is actually a great, depending on how you look at it, this is a great time to ask me this question, or it's a terrible time, because my thinking is going through an evolution right now over the last week or two on the topic of creating things for Bitcoiners for our space, and perhaps the thoughts are not fully formed yet, but no, but it's good. It's good to have it out here. Um, in our if you look at the Bitcoin world, right, and I'm talking about hardcore Bitcoiners, I would say at a stretch, there's probably 100,000 people who are core believers. I think that's a stretch, but let's just go with that. It's a nice round number.
I say
Let's just go with.
200K, but yeah, you're probably closer to the number, and you're probably right. It is probably lower even than that, but
Right. So if I'm not talking about the Bitcoin adjacent folks, the crypto people, right? I'm talking about the hard boiled,
yeah.
honey badger type folks. Um, and there are two kinds of people in that, which is what I've come. I knew this at the back of my mind, but I've sort of verbalizing this to myself a lot more now. There are two kinds of people in that 100,000. One is creators, and this can be. I'm talking about developers as well, right? Wallet developers, Nostr app developers, people who are just using their craft to using their skills, their passions to build something that they think will make the world a better place. Apps. It can also be content, right? People making videos, people doing podcasts,
Do you
all of that.
consider people starting businesses kind of like what we're doing at Sovereign as well, where it's a bunch of us that came
Absolutely.
from business backgrounds, and now we're trying to start our own business of what we were doing in fiat land, bringing it to Bitcoin land.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Sovereign is a perfect example of that. People trying to spread the good word, right? Get merchants on board and build that education. So, you have these builders and creators, that includes educators, that includes businesses that are actively trying to make a dent in the space, right? So the space consists of those people, and then it consists of people who are not yet that. And it's a very particular or peculiar nature of the type of individual who's part of this 100,000, which is it typically involves some kind of awakening, saying, "Look, my life has been a lie. This fiat, I was stuck in the matrix. I was hopeless. I was in despair, looking at all the thing around, all this violence around me, all this waste, all of this desperation around me. But then I found Bitcoin. I began to understand the world a lot better, and now I have hope. Right? I'm not despairing anymore, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to build this better world. And so the second type of person also fits this broader paradigm of someone who's awoken, who's finally has the hope. But maybe they're too. I call them would-be creators because they're too early in their journey. And they're still in the consumption mode, right? They're consuming, they're learning. And at some point, this is like a story as old as Bitcoin, they reach that inflection point saying, okay, done. Now let's get active. Let's start building. So for someone, the realization that's been dawning on me, for someone like me, what most of the content I've been creating, so I have a TV show, a travel show. I've written books of fiction geared to a Bitcoin audience. I have a podcast that is primarily focused on culture and philosophy in the Bitcoin and Nostr world. Right, I do talk to developers as well, but it's really I'm trying to push the culture and philosophy angle. And what I'm realizing is my target market is not the builders because everyone's trying to build and everyone's trying to make it. Almost right. They're because this burning fire of passion has been lit inside of them through the discovery of Bitcoin. They're like, you know what? I don't have time for distractions. I'm just going to focus on my craft. And then the ones who are ready to consume are really looking to consume, for the most part, the technical analysis. Maybe they want a little bit of hope. as well, because they've just come out of that desperation. They want to hear about NGU, about how Bitcoin's going to be. They want to look at lines on a chart. Nothing wrong with that. I think we've all gone through that phase of hopium, right? Needing that hopium to stabilize us. Or as people who want to hear like deep dive technical discussions, either on Austrian economics or on distributed networks, intricacies of the Lightning Network, of the protocol, Bitcoin protocol itself. So I am beginning to wonder if what I've been producing is actually even has a product market fit, which is the culture, the philosophy, the storytelling. I have the food and travel show, Finding Home, that I'd just mentioned. My books, surrealist fantasy fiction with a aimed at Bitcoiners. And I think the realization I'm coming to is there is no product market fit yet.
Yet.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Well, oh yeah, keep going. I got some
So
stuff. Yeah.
if I think, I'm also an engineer, so I'm not just an artist guy. In fact, I'm an engineer by training, so I tend to think in at the systems level. So if I look at selling my product, for lack of a better term, right? You always think in concentric circles, right? You have the core believers who will who will listen to what you do, watch your videos, listen to your podcasts, read your books, and even support you to an extent, right? And then you have the next layer of the potentially curious ones who you can try and permeate into, and then the layers beyond that, right? And there is a pathway to permeation from the first concentric circle to the next and beyond in a typical market, assuming you're a skilled person who knows what they're doing, right? And your product is actually good. I don't think there is a path yet from that first concentric circle, at least for my line of products, into that second concentric circle. The first one, I mean, look, I'm incredibly grateful for all the people. Like you're one of them, Brandon, and there are others. But I would say honestly, the core circle who actually resonates with what I create is about 50 people. Occasionally extends to more than that. If you look at my stats on Fountain, there's about over 600 people who've supported the show, but in the regulars, it's probably capped at 50. And I've been putting an inordinate amount of work into my content, uh, a lot. And while I genuinely appreciate the 50 odd people who are the core believers, I I'm not yet at the point, I believe, where the effort is worth the reward. So I'm beginning to rethink the thesis that I've unlocked. Bitcoin has helped me unlock this creative side of myself, and I will produce for Bitcoiners. I think that was the category error I was making. The first part is right. Bitcoin has unleashed this creative side of me, but I should be targeting my content not at Bitcoiners, maybe making it a little more neutral, still the same creative energy, but maybe focus on the non-Bitcoiner world where people do have the time to consume and they're not in the constant build mode. I don't have time for anyone else. So that's kind of been the revelation that I've been digesting over the last couple of weeks.
Interesting. I mean, I have a hard time disagreeing with you, and I've been sort of going through my own thought process as well this year on sort of the financial side of things, the economic side of things, where I 100% believer, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and all of that. At the same time, to your point, there's one to or 50 to, right, in the Bible, the numbers, the 44,000. So maybe we'll just go with the 44,000. That's sort of the remnant, if you will.
Yeah,
um
yeah,
and so, whatever the number is, 10,000, 200,000, somewhere in there. Yes, one Bitcoin does equal one Bitcoin. If I want to buy something from you and you'll sell it to me in Bitcoin, you're almost price agnostic, right? Like, yes, okay, there's some peg to the current fiat price, but like if I price it 100,000 sats or 150,000 sats or 75,000 sats, it's all kind of the same to me, right? Like I'm denominating my life in Bitcoin. I'm trying to stack Bitcoin. And yes, there could be some short-term, fiat price fluctuations, but whatever. I know the general sort of input costs, what it would take me to get 100,000 sats, and this is what I think of 100,000 sats worth. unfortunately 99.9% of the people you're interacting with don't think that way. And in
Mm.
your unit of account, or not your unit of account, but their unit of account is still the dollar. And let's be honest, the number go up idea, and Avi, I know you and I are on very similar journeys of quitting our fiat job, going to do what we wanted to do, going to try to build something in the Bitcoin space, and I really appreciated a lot of your your sermons at the beginning of your show about how the only thing keeping you there was yourself. Like, you built your own cage. You kept saying "Waiting for Godot," and I kept thinking of the movie "Waiting for Guffman," which I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it's a Christopher Guest, mockumentary style movie, and uh, I actually have not seen Waiting for Godot, and now I'm starting to wonder if Waiting for Guffman is actually a spoof of Waiting for Godot. But I got to go watch that. But anyways, um, you so I really appreciated sort of the difficulty of going out and doing something where you're like, I think it's going to turn out this way, really want everything to happen. I'm going out. I'm going to have this group of people who are on board. It's going to go this way. And then it's just like, boom, nothing's kind of going the way you thought it. We had Paper Bitcoin Summer, the, Valhalla of all these DATs pumping our bags and everything never happened. It's I'm sure everyone's like, oh, Bitcoin, when it hits $500,000, I'll sell half a coin, and that'll be
Mhm.
2 years worth of runway for me and my family, or whatever the math you did is. And it's like, okay, you left, that didn't happen. Here we are, and now we're trying to um, figure our way through this. Still build, still make stuff, but at the same time, um, Bitcoin isn't going to be sort of the financial Valhalla until the unit of account changes. Until, it, we talk as Bitcoiners, we talk about it starts as a store of value, then moves to a medium exchange, and then ultimately it's your unit of account. And I think for me personally, a lot of my timeline and where I was basing things was based on this store of value calculation. Like, boom, people are going to figure out store of value. The dollar's debasing, Bitcoin's scarce. This is very obvious. People are just going to allocate some portion of their portfolio to this, and Bitcoin's going to be $5 million or $2 million. It's not even going to matter. Like, at that point, it's just going to be whatever. Like, the world will have figured out the store of value part. And I've come to the realization that I don't think anything meaningful as it relates to Bitcoin versus all the other currencies, the Bitcoin standard, if you will, like, it's all irrelevant until unit of account happens. Like, to me, I kind of went from the idea of this, well, it's going to be this gradual conversion, it's going to go slowly up over time, to where, like, actually, and then, like, Bitcoin will be the thing that sort of propels your life, that gets you through, where it's like, no, it's actually value that the market wants that is going to propel you through. And then we're going to have a 0 to 1 moment when unit of account change, because until unit of account changes, it none of it matter. I mean, you have these giant hedge funds that can go 100x leverage with dollars. So, like,
Mhm.
I mean, and we saw this happen every time, Bitcoin would go on a little run, like, some giant leverage position would come in and sell it down. And yes, there's, of course, I'm not saying market manipulation, I'm not saying anything like that, but you have market participants with access to amounts of dollars that are so unimaginable to the rest of the
Mhm.
world, that as long as Bitcoin is denominated in dollars, we're kind of just going to be in this slow uptick
Yeah.
trend over time as people adopt. And you are going, and I know everyone, oh, volatility is vitality, and all this stuff, and that's true to an extent, but really at the end of the day, it's all just people playing fiat games with another asset. It's just another monetary game for these people, because the unit of account is still the dollar. And, like, so I've unfortunately come to grapple with the same realization that these great things I thought of for this space, for how things were going to go, how people were going to be, liberated from their jobs, that it's it's all kind of a zero until that unit of account changes. And sorry for, going on a long
That's great.
rambling tirade, but I've been kind of fleshing this thought out in my head as well, and going on this same mental journey to come to a conclusion that while I think it's correct, while I think what you're saying is correct, maybe not be it might not be fun or enjoyable or a great conclusion to reach, but I do think it's true.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the one thing I'd add, and I suspect you're implying this already, Brandon, is we need that medium of exchange to happen. I know we sort of trot out these cliches, and one of the cliches is first order value, then medium of exchange, then unit of account. But I think there is a grain of truth in it, right? Which is that does seem like the most natural progression that ought to happen anyway. And the I think we need that medium of exchange idea to take root at a far deeper level than it is right now. Right now, it's a game for most people. Oh, it's Steak and Shake accepts it. Amazing. Square terminals, amazing. But what are we really doing here, right? Part of it is we're talking about cliches. There are a lot of cultural memes in Bitcoin that have, unfortunately, some of them have morphed into a form of dogma, like HODL culture. HODL is a good meme, and there's absolutely a grain of truth in it, right? Which is, yes, why fiat teaches you to spend irresponsibly, to spend recklessly, to rack up debt. So of course you don't spend more than what you earn, and whatever excess you have, you park that in meaningful assets like Bitcoin, and you hold that for, I guess, a rainy day, or if you need to make some kind of capital investment in something that'll improve your quality of life. So there is that grain of truth in HODL, but it's now become a form of dogma, which is, you shall never sell your Bitcoin under any circumstances. And if that is the case, then medium of exchange is never going to happen, right? And some of these treasury companies, the DATs that you were talking about, they've had a very negative effect on behaviors. People, I mean, these are loud voices, right? Voices that resonate in the community, and people are paying attention and they're acting accordingly. So I think the next battlefront, for lack of a better term, is that we need to be able to convince people that it's okay to spend your Bitcoin. It's not just okay; it's actually the best thing you can do right now, because you're hoarding a pet rock, and and hoping, to your point, Brandon, maybe one day it becomes a unit of account, the hyper Bitcoinization moment. I think that would herald that moment, right? A globally accepted unit of account. But you have a role as a user of the network in making that happen. It's not going to happen by magic. It's not going to happen if you sit on your hands. You've got to go out there and start treating Bitcoin like money. That doesn't mean spend every single one of your sats, right? Don't bring that fiat mindset of excessive spending. It's not that at all. But try and grease the wheels of this Bitcoin-based economy. Start normalizing it for both for yourself and for the merchants that you transact with, that hey, this is a normal thing. I can pay you in dollars, but I can pay you in Bitcoin as well. And I think the more people do that, the more the runway to that unit of account hyper Bitcoinization moment starts getting closer.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I still do agree with the projection that it store value, medium of exchange, then unit of account. Like, I don't think we get to the unit of account, 0 to 1 moment I'm talking about without it becoming a medium of exchange. And I've talked about it a bunch on this podcast, because I just don't. I hate the idea of Gresham's law: spend the good money or spend the bad money, save the good. It's like, no, you holding dollars is you holding the inferior money. So you've already violated Gresham's law by holding a worse currency. So, like, you're violating your own stupid principle. So it logically doesn't make sense. And Um, Plenty of people have done great analysis on this stuff. Parker Lewis specifically is the one that comes to mind. He wrote a whole article about how if you hold Bitcoin long enough, you're actually better off spending your Bitcoin, keeping your Bitcoin, not spending the dollars, and then spending your Bitcoin when you actually need it at a later point in time. It's actually mathematically better. So it's just a stupid logical fallacy that fails on all fronts. The only reason to hold dollars is for stability. Like I need to buy something in 90 days or I need to buy something in 12 months. Like those are your considerations, not I need spending money. So I'm going to keep some dollars. It's like you're already violating the principle of better money forcing out or worse money becoming more in circulation than the good money. Like it just it's a logical fallacy. And one of the things I've been just shocked about in the Bitcoin sphere is how bad Bitcoiners are at personal finance. Like it blows my mind how. And listen, I've been in banking my whole life. I have a business background, so my dad started me with a brokerage account at age 12. So like I've been inundated in this stuff, and I understand I have a much better education, a much better background than most when it comes to this stuff. But and other people came from different other people come from blue collar backgrounds. People worked on farms, people were journalists, whatever it may be. So I understand that you haven't had the same education, but people talk like they do have that education, like they're coming from a place of knowledge or understanding of something they're so ignorant and just completely wrong about. And I hear even people talking about mortgages, like, oh, you can't take out a mortgage. It's a dumb idea to have debt. Like, no, it's not a dumb idea to have debt. It may be ethically dubious, like you can make that argument. Daniel Prince makes that argument that if you're taking out a mortgage, you're creating dollars out of thin air. I appreciate that argument. I get it. That's an ethical point of view. But from a financial decision, it's a terrible decision because you're pricing yourself out of a market that's inflated because of mortgages. So you immediately are handicapping yourself. You get to spread payments over 30 years. It's a welfare program for middle income people. And let's be honest, if you're paying taxes, you're partially subsidizing that anyways. So you know, but it's like not understanding the value of a mortgage, like, oh, I just got to pay cash for my house. You want to sleep at night because you don't have debt. You want to say that debt is immoral. Great. All arguments, I will accept those. That's fine. Those are personal choices, those are personal preferences. But to tell me financially it makes any sense at all, like that's just you just don't know what you're talking about. So it's been, I apologize, Avi, I'm venting a little just because it is
You know,
very, but it all relates back to this same concept of, well, I'm not going to spend my Bitcoin. And it's like, that's just financially wrong, A, number one. And then B, number two, it just, you're hindering the development of the Bitcoin economy of like you walk into a store and I get it. People don't want to be hassled. They don't want to be like, hey, do you accept Bitcoin? It's uncomfortable. And then you don't want to deal with the friction. And I get all that stuff. I understand it. I would just want to pay with my card and be done. Great. Well, like that does have a real world consequence of slowing down Bitcoin adoption, Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. And then ultimately, it's just going to take longer for us to get there. And if you don't care about that, if that's the way you want to live your life, fine. But it is holding back the development of the ecosystem, and ultimately, what we're all in this for, ending this fiat system of debt slavery and rapacious theft. So
yeah, funding war and yeah, the
yeah,
list goes on.
yeah,
Yeah.
all the evil stuff. So, circling back to what you were talking about, what what's sort of been your conclusion? Where what I guess what are you going to do about it?
What am I? what I'm going to do is just recognize that I made a category error or product market fit error, right? So the foundation was correct, which is, becoming a Bitcoiner and then, understanding what I was doing with my time, um, stepping out of a fiat job, to focus fully on my craft. That was all the right thing, right? Nothing changes, and it was only through an understanding of Bitcoin that I was able to step out of the cage that I'd built for myself. Even first of all, recognize that I even was in a cage, and then recognize that I was the only one who had the key, and I was the only one who could let myself out. I think where I feel I was, but there's no product market fit is specifically in my case, but I would extend this to folks in the Bitcoin art and culture world. Is Bitcoin has liberated you to focus on your craft. That's great. Your craft doesn't have to be about Bitcoin for the product market fit reason that I was talking about, which is, as things stand today, most people want to hear a very specific type of thing, either more technical things, or finance things, macroeconomic things. They might not art, which you pour your heart and soul into. Ask any artist, right? Whether they're a writer, musician, whatever it might be, um, might not be that right now, right? What that market's looking for. So by all means, do it, but just focus on the right market. Think long and hard, because it's unlikely that these 100,000 or 44,000 remnants, whatever you want to call them, um, they might not be willing to pay for it. So in my case, I mean, look, I've been, in the last 3 months, especially, I've been churning out 10 podcast episodes a month, right? With Plebchain Radio, there's the Friday show. I do a Sunday music show. I do a technical show on Web of Trust. It's been 10 a month for the last 3 or 4 months, 6 hours per episode if you include the pre-production, the actual episodes itself, and the post-production. Um, and again, I don't want to make this sound like like I'm ungrateful for the 50 odd people who appreciate what I do, right? But the point I'm trying to make is, if I'm putting in this much effort and to create a high quality product, right? It's not like this is some fly by night operation. It At some point the reward has to be somewhat commensurate with the effort going into it. Otherwise, I have to keep the lights on in my place as well, right? Um, and I'm even willing to, for, just a broader resonance, uh, from an appreciation, is would be something, but I just don't think the the market is there just yet. So what I'm going to do about it is just widen my aperture. So I'll give you specific examples. One thing I will scale back Plebchain Radio. 10 episodes a month is just not sustainable. It's I'm driving myself into the ground with that. So I'll
Believe it.
probably scale that back to half or maybe less than half of that. On Finding Home, which is a Bourdain inspired travel show where I travel the world to talk to Bitcoiner expats, and it's we have these conversations about food and how they've found home in this new land, and Bitcoin is a large background hum in that conversation. What I recognize is this is a human show. It doesn't have to be about Bitcoin, right? So I can broaden the aperture, don't not make it Bitcoin specific, and that way non-Bitcoiners who would have been turned off by the topic of Bitcoin that's simmering under the surface can actually come in and watch these stories about the human condition, which do resonate. Similarly, for my books, I've written 2 books, 24 and July 18, which are stories of a young man's discovery of Bitcoin, but told in a magic realist way. I was supposed to write a third book because I've kind of left the second one hanging. I will write it someday. I was planning to write it this year. I'm not going to write it this year. So what I've actually done and I do want to, I have this burning desire to continue writing. So I've actually written another book, similar character archetypes. I've recycled a lot of the themes, but stripped the Bitcoin out of it. And I've written it under a pseudonym to sever myself from the Bitcoiner identity. So I'm going to be releasing that in the next month or two. And I'm going to continue writing that series because I believe those have a very strong chance of getting published. One of the challenges with my Bitcoin novels was they're like, yeah, if you're writing about Bitcoin and you want to get it published, it's got to be something technical or financial or economic. If you're writing about fiction and you want to get it published, it can't be about a niche topic like Bitcoin, right? So I was straddling two impossible worlds to get sort of broad reach in. So I picked one, and I'm going to double down on that. So practical steps, foundation is true. Bitcoin unlocked this creative potential in me that was always there. I'm just not. I'm going to focus on a market where I have a better chance of getting traction.
And there's a couple people in the Bitcoin space that have, or Bitcoin adjacent space, whatever, that have written fiction books and have nothing to do with Bitcoin. And Lynn Alden comes to mind, Mel Madison comes to mind, and they're yeah. To your point, it was a creative story, and the thing about it is you can have Bitcoin themes, you can have Bitcoin archetypes, you just don't have to say the word Bitcoin. And it's really frustrating because Avi, I was not joking in the intro. I mean, you can tell the work you put into the podcast. You can tell the work you put into the sermons, the work you put into your videos, to your movies or shows, or however you want to classify them. But it's very apparent, and it's a really, really high quality product, and it's really good. And I would love to see more people consuming your content, and I think they should, but for whatever reason it's just, yeah, if there's this underlying theme of Bitcoin, it's like, well, it can't be good, or it has to be about money. Did you ever watch the show Pantheon, by the way?
No.
Okay, it's animated show. It's on Netflix. It's 2 seasons, and it's all about a future where everyone kind of becomes a hosted version on a server of themselves. So they're
Mm,
basically they're digital. They're not even digital. They're I guess digital is the right word. So their sort of digital self continues on into the future, even though they're physically gone. And there's all sorts of intrigue, and Bitcoin's mentioned a couple times during the show. They actually mention Open Dime during the show, which is pretty cool. But to that point, it's just this really interesting creative story that, like, you could have I could have seen someone writing that story with Bitcoin as like the backbone of the story, and it probably would have never made it to Netflix. They sprinkled in a couple mentions, but a ton of the themes of Bitcoin, self-hosting versus other people hosting, third parties, webs of trust, all these sort of things that
mm,
are so prevalent in the Bitcoin community, they're able to be broached in a Netflix show when Bitcoin is not the central theme. And I appreciate you realizing that, and I appreciate actually you even sort of making me think about this more. But it is very frustrating. And so along those lines, do you think then? I know you've had some Bitcoin for the Arts folks on the show, and Dion and Buttercup Roberts, and some of these other folks out there. Do you think we're going to have to get to a point where everything is sort of commissioned or paid for? And Issa Lobel Art, who I'm sure you know, on Nostr, legend on Nostr, one of the greatest painter. I commissioned a painting from
mm,
them, and it's beautiful. It hangs in my living room. It was an anniversary gift to my wife. My wife loves it. It means a lot to us. I mean, it's something we're going to cherish for the rest of our lives. But I had to go commission the painting. I had to have it done. And is that the future we're going to,
yeah.
when it comes to art and when it comes to content? And then you'll have someone, let's say like a Madex or someone like that, where they just transcend everything. They're one in a million. Their art resonates with lots of people, and they sell a ton of stuff. And that's they make, they have sort of the old school business model of cost, revenue, I have a business, as opposed to things being commissioned. Take your time, put the creativity into it, put the beauty into it, which is what Bitcoin for the Arts talks a lot about. That stuff.
Mm,
Is that the world you think we ultimately end up
yeah.
in, sort of a Italian Renaissance type world
I
situation.
I strongly believe that, and that's kind of the idea behind Bitcoin for the Arts, to be an instrument of that, and I'm
Mhm.
I'm involved in that project as well. And I think the key thing the key trap not to fall into, and I don't foresee this happening, is commissioning. Just going back to my point, commissioning Bitcoin art or supporting Bitcoin art. Maybe Bitcoin can be part of the theme, but I think we run into the same category error again if that's what happens. So it's about art in its purest form. There's no agenda other than let me create the most beautiful thing that I can. Right? Let me this channel this divine energy or whatever you want to call it through me into my craft and onto the canvas, whether that canvas is a literal physical canvas or music or whatever the medium might be. And your as an artist, if you're going to tell them, look, your work is amazing and I want to support you, by the way, it's not in dollars, it's this other thing, it's going to pay your bills anyway. They're going to be like, yes, I've been waiting for this, I've been waiting for recognition, I've been waiting for resonance so that I can express myself and keep the lights on, right, which is like a big thing. Fiat society has sort of killed that aspiration to beauty. It's dulled the edges completely. Um, and I think, but there are people there. There might not even be Bitcoiners, but there are people who feel they have this creative output in them, but they have no way of channeling it just because. Like as an artist, you have to put if you're a parent, especially, right? You have to support your family. So you end up doing some job as a supermarket clerk or whatever it might be, um, which has nothing to do with your God-given talents. So I think giving folks like that an opportunity to create this beauty starts tilting the world back into that out of that fiat brutalism into a more the new renaissance. I think it's going to be a long process. I think Bitcoin for the Arts will play an important role in that. Um, but the key thing here is, but at least at the beginning, let's not make the category error of saying just because it's Bitcoin funding the art doesn't mean the art has to be about Bitcoin.
And also, and I'm gonna I gotta be careful how I say that. I mean, I don't have to be careful, but I want to be respectful how I say this. There's a lot of quote unquote Bitcoin art out there that I just don't find good. Like it's
Mhm.
okay, great. There's a cool theme. There's some theme about the evils of central banking or of currency control or those sort of things. But I look at the art and I'm like, it's uninspiring. It is that fiat brutalism. It's like fiat brutalism with a Bitcoin theme. And it's like, that's not doing anything for me. Whereas I see someone like Bell on Nostr and I see their paintings of Venice, of Florence, of Rome. And I'm just like, this is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. And they'll accept payments in Bitcoin. And to me, that is much more attractive than some sort of thrown together, I like the way you said it, fiat brutalist painting or piece of art that just so happens to have a Bitcoin theme to it. And that is such I don't even want to say incredibly small niche of person, but it's almost like you're engaging in this quote unquote creative endeavor without really creating anything of beauty or aesthetic quality.
Mhm.
It's more of it's almost like you're better off just making a meme out of this.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the bad Bitcoin art, and not to say all Bitcoin art is bad, right? There is some
No,
good
of
stuff
course
out
not.
there.
Yeah, of course.
Uh, but the bad Bitcoin art, I suspect, was created from a place of agenda rather than let that unbridled energy flow through the creative process. If you go into something saying, I want to make something uh, that has Bitcoin as a theme, right? You go in with that agenda. I think what you're doing is that you're creating a lot of blockers for the creative process to flow through you. Whereas if you just go into something saying, you look, I have the skill, I have this, I mean, let's just call it, anyone who's created art understands what I'm saying. There's a divine inspiration that's in me that is just looking to burst out. And I'm just going to take my metaphorical canvas, whatever the medium might be, and put my skill to work and see what comes out. Um, and that's so, in that sense, art is the unbridled pursuit of beauty, right? Why does art need to exist? Well, what is the point of art? To exist. Why? Because, right? And if it's that, I think that, and there's obviously skill involved. You will see it, you will feel it, and even an untrained observer will be able to feel whatever the artist is creating. And I think where the dissonance that you feel when you look at some of this Bitcoin art, and which I feel, and anyone else might feel, is that agenda that comes into that's probably one of the filters that the artist used.
Yeah, it's sad because you see it in everything around you, right? Like all the architecture, it's kind of the same thing. It's like I have this piece of art, I wanted to convey a Bitcoin message. I have this building, it's purely for utility. That's it. It's there to the quote unquote message it's conveying is I'm here to stuff people into an office. I'm here to give 1,500 square feet to someone to live into, and that's it. And that's where it ends. And it's I and I don't even I talked about this with Source Node when he was on the podcast, and I know you brought up sort of the old world topic. The place you were looking for was Tartaria,
Oh, that's
and
it. Yeah.
yeah, and this idea of is the society we live in, is the sort of history we're kind of able to cobble together, not the guessing stuff, but the last couple hundred years where we have an okay idea of at least directionally what had happened. Did that society did were those buildings ever even created by this collection of society? Like, did we
Yeah.
ever even did this species, did this line of humans, did we ever even make that? Like, or was it from some civilization much more evolved, way more in touch, technologies beyond our imagination? Like, did we have we even evolved enough in this line of this lineage to even create something like that?
Yeah. This is a history black pill that I think Bitcoiners will appreciate, which is what is his, and I'm talking about the don't trust verify. Another meme, but I don't think this is dogma. I think this is really important, right? It's like the opposite of what was the line in 1984? Don't trust the evidence of your, or reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. No,
Right in
no,
front
no,
of your
no.
eyes, yeah.
Yeah, you that is all you have. The empirical senses is all that you have that allow you to construct a picture of the reality. So if you haven't experienced history, something that happened before you were born, for instance, then what are you relying on? You're relying on the accounts of others. Um, Now, there are two kinds of accounts: the benevolent accounts and the malevolent accounts. Malevolent accounts are the people who have an agenda and who want to shape the public consciousness. So, I safe to say most of our textbooks are, probably fall closer to malevolent than benevolent. The benevolent could be your mom telling you a story from her childhood of what she saw her grandfather do, which is great. I love you, mom. But how do I know that because you're talking about your granddad being part of some movement, you haven't clouded that with nostalgia and added all sorts of details over the course of the years? So, unless you've actually experienced this thing with your empirical senses and noted it, assuming that you're not under the influence of some drugs, right? And taken that snapshot of that memory, like that, how do you know anything else is true? So with history, it's so this is the black pill, right? Like there is no, what is history? It's probably closer to fiction than to reality because there are all of these conditions that need to be true. That is, it's truly benevolent. They've taken a ultra realistic snapshot based on their empirical observations, and recorded that in a way that cannot be tampered. Um, and
Made its way to Wikipedia.
There you go. So if you look at you brought up the Tartarian. So this is in reference to a conversation I had with Source Node, who was on my podcast a month ago, and we were talking about, look at this incredible architecture from 400, 500 years ago. These geometric shapes at a incredibly grand scale. I'm not just talking about Western Europe, right? If you look at some of the temples in India, some of the Islamic architecture from 1,000 years ago, right?
Oh, downtown New
Unbelievable.
York, downtown Chicago. Go St. Patrick's Church in New York. I mean, that looks like it's
Oh,
right
that's
out of Budapest.
that is a brilliant example, actually. St. Patrick's Church in New York, the old New York Public Library, and an even crazier one, St. John the Divine, next to Columbia University in uptown Manhattan,
Or
which
how
is
about the
even
Met?
crazier.
Yeah,
The Met.
yeah.
Well, that was the Gilded Age stuff, right? We're talking about some of the Met was like the 1870 Brooklyn Bridge, right? Met, that was all the Gilded
Well, in
Age,
theory, that's kind of my point. Is
right?
yeah,
So if you look at
supposedly.
the, but
Yeah.
so you can maybe let's just separate the 100, 200 year stuff from the
Okay,
500,
okay.
600 year stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
and you look I mean, the Duomo in Milan, or the Duomo in Florence, wherever, massive architectural geometric shapes, perfect in every way imaginable, interweaving lattices and all of this at a unimaginable scale. These ceilings are what, 200 feet high, in some cases
At
300 feet
least. Yep.
at least. How did they carry the raw materials? How were they able to shape it in that way at that scale? And we're not able to do that now. I mean, look at the if we tried, we wouldn't be able to.
Even even expounding on that, how did they have enough daylight to do the work on the inside? Where did all that come? I mean, they just
Yeah,
had 8,000 candles they were hanging from the ceiling to work through the night, and then in the winter when it was 8 degrees outside,
yeah,
all this kind of, I mean, the intricacy of the work on the inside, those mosaics in some of these churches, how did that would take 1,000 years today. Like, I
yeah.
mean, it's just mind blowing, and it's literally impossible with the framework and the story we've been given. So
So, let's even fast forward to the stuff we set aside, like the Met Museum, like the St. Patrick's Church, St. John the Divine, the old New York Public Library. It's how those are like 150 years old. We're talking about the Gilded Age, right? How did any of those things get built with the technology that we're told existed at the time at that scale? So, yeah, it's clearly
yes,
there are gaps in our history that we don't fully understand, and which is where you have theories, where there are gaps in information and logic. You have theories that seep in. So the Tartarian civilization, which is supposed to be this advanced civilization, they had these tools, and they've presumably disappeared now, or somehow reintegrated into society and are leading these secret lives uh, amongst us. Yeah, interesting stuff, Brandon. But one thing I will tell you, that I am not one to reject the evidence of my eyes and ears, and I think any Bitcoiner listening to this should apply that don't trust, verify to this as well. Not don't jump to crazy conclusions, right? But and wild conspiracy theories, but at least question some of these basic things.
yes, and that's kind of the point I was getting to. Was we talk about, oh, this fiat architecture, and look how we used to do it. It's like, is that true? Is it just because we had the gold standard that people would take 1,000 years to build these things, or 100 years to build these things? And of course, you get into the ridiculousness of something like the Field Museum here in Chicago, which is just a spectacular building that looks like it's straight out of Athens. And they tell us it was built and thrown together in 9 months for the World Fair, back in 1893, when there were like 150,000 people total living in the city of Chicago. And it's just laughable. But we kind of operate under the assumption like, oh, it was back in 1890, and we had a gold standard, so people valued their time more and they cared about their craftsmanship. And it's like, that's a great story, but is it actually true? Or is there something much grander, and we're just doing the best we can without these technologies, without this understanding of building, without the way they did all this stuff, and we're just trying to throw stuff together that people can live in and not blow over when some strong winds come through town.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
wonder if you'll ever know. Rand, I would love to know, but
I'm a Christian myself, so I think we will know the answers to all this stuff one day. But I don't think I'm ever going to know as long as I'm in my corporeal. Wait, how do you say corporeal?
corporeal, yeah,
Corporeal, yeah.
skin, yeah,
Yes, my corporeal body. I don't think
yeah,
I will ever get to know that. But um, getting sort of looping it all back to this idea of a focus on beauty and a focus on aesthetics. And I will agree that while we may not be focusing on beauty and aesthetics to the same degree necessarily, I do think Fiat makes it impossible. I do think it is like we will never be able to get to those levels of aesthetics, even if we had the technology and wanted to do that. I still don't think we could do that on a fiat standard. I think we do need Bitcoin as our money to do that stuff, even with the technology available to us.
yeah. I mean, it buys you time, right? If your purchasing power is being debased on a non-stop basis, you're always chasing, which is what the world we live in. If you're anything outside of the, let's be generous and say top 10%, although I suspect it's the top 1%. But let's just, if you're on the bottom 90% on the income distribution, you are chasing. You are in constant chasing mode. Your your purchasing power is not tied to assets because it cannot be. You just don't have enough wiggle room to park it into assets which are truly hedged against inflation, right? I mean, it's almost tautologically. The Fed the Fed turns the money printer on, and the cantillionaires immediately rotate out of cash into assets, and so it's just the loop is self fulfilling. So go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, and that's back to our earlier conversation about medium of exchange. You have people who are
Yeah.
exchanging out of Bitcoin into dollars to circulate the money because they need it to buy groceries, they need it to do whatever. Well, imagine if they were actually able to just hold the Bitcoin and circulate that instead and never have to
Mhm.
exchange it for dollars. That's a whole different level of sell pressure, of fiat sell pressure that's alleviated from Bitcoin as well, allowing the furtherance of that medium of exchange. But just another hurdle. And you could have not only the hodlers and the wealthy people just trying to save themselves from debasement and storing their savings in the money, but actually the currency users
Yeah.
using the money as well. So
I think one way, so just going back to the purchasing power point, right? The rate of change of your purchasing power can be thought of as a proxy for time. Um, and this is why there is no time in fiat to create beauty, because you're losing your purchasing power. The rate of change is negative, so your time is negative. And you see, you have a certain number of years on the planet, but even that's getting compressed because you're constantly chasing the ability just to stay alive, stay afloat, keep the lights on. And if your purchasing power goes up, meaning the rate of change is positive, which is on a Bitcoin standard, that's what we'd like to believe would happen. Then you have the time. Then you don't need to chase, and then you can think about the finer things in life, like okay, nope, my children are fed, my roof isn't about to collapse. Now I have enough time to think about what I really want to do. And for many people, it might not be art, right? It could be something else that they're passionate about. But there will be enough people who otherwise would have had time for their art, who then would have the time and create that beauty. And by the way, one last thing on that, because their their time is effectively increasing because their purchasing power is increasing, they would be creating art not from a place of desperation and torment, but something better, and that would maybe then the art wouldn't be as nihilistic as it is today. And if it's not nihilistic, if it's something soaring, something inspiring, one or two people who happen to look at it, they get inspired, their day improves, they do something good with their time as a result of that, and then it's a beautiful flywheel that comes into play.
Well, I mean, how many are it's infinite, the not infinite, but it's incalculable the number of artists they put out their first album and you're like, this is one of the best things I've ever heard. And then their second album comes out because the first album did so well. It was all this time, all this energy poured in, and it really resonated with people. It was an incredible musical endeavor, and it just people couldn't wait to get enough of it. And then the record company is like, you got 12 months to come out with another one because we signed you to a contract and this is your deal. And it's the same kind of perversion as they put out their second record. And it's like, I think of like Beck as a perfect example. Like his, his second album came out and it's like there's like one good song on here, and his first album was all good songs. And he kind of got back to making good music eventually, but that's just one example. But there's just so many examples where the second album comes out and you're like, what happened here? This is just a complete aberration
Yeah.
of your talent.
A fiat corruption, right? The labels are like such a perfect example of useless rent seekers sucking the creativity out, and sucking the joy and aspiration out of art to convert it into. Uh, I mean, this is the thing I just don't understand about broader fiat culture, because by nature, like everything we've talked about, it is a true parasite, right? Its nature is parasitic because it's all about the short term gains. People don't think generationally. And a parasite's end, what is a virus or any other kind of parasite's end game? By nature, the host will die, and then you will die as a parasite, right? So fiat will kill itself. The question is when. Um, I mean, you can use any. So I use the parasite analogy, but you can use cutting the goose that laid the golden eggs, right? Like you're a record label. You found this jewel, and their album took off. And instead of saying, "Why don't I nurture this creative energy that allowed them to create this masterpiece?" Instead of thinking in terms of the impact and beauty they had in the world, they think in terms of the dollars that they got, saying, "Aha! Now I have a dollar benchmark. Here's my next dollar benchmark. Now let's see how much I can suck out of this machine," as opposed to this sentient, creative individual. So this is I don't fully understand how the fiat system cannot ever look at itself and say, my end game is to kill myself eventually because I'm going to suck the lifeblood out of the my host. I don't see why that never happens.
Well, I had this conversation on Stats Chat with the guys. We were talking about sort of the creation of the Federal Reserve, and was it intentional? Was it people that thought they were doing the right thing? And I was most certainly of the belief that it was they knew 100% what they were doing. They were very malicious and malevolent actors that knew exactly how the system was going to extract wealth. And so, did they just say, we're going to create this system, we're going to be first to the gates, we're going to extract so much wealth from people, we're going to build up our own little hoard, our own little generational wealth stack, if you will. And it's like, we're just going to pass that down into perpetuity forever. We're going to be the cantillons of cantillons, and we know how it's going to work, we know how it's going to end, but we're going to be first to the spigot, we're going to get all this stuff, and we're just going to deal with the fallout and the consequences at the end because we'll have packed our bags already.
Mm. Yeah. But what is I mean, so presumably they don't have kids then, right? Because
No, I'm
they
thinking
just
of someone like the Rothschilds or the Morgans,
mm,
or they're on their 10th generation of whoever founded whatever back in the you can go back to the Rothschilds, you go back to like the 1600s, and there's still 10 of them running around now. And these, people talk about Elon Musk being the world's richest man. I just laugh. Like, Elon Musk, he's worth maybe $1 trillion. Like, have you heard of the Rothschilds? They're worth like $800 trillion. Um, not maybe not that much, maybe like $80 trillion or something, but some ungodly amount of money. But they've just been passing that down, passing that down, passing that down, because they've controlled the currency, right? They were kind of the original fiat masters back, starting the Bank of England. Really, it was in Germany, and then they kind of expropriated that idea to England, and then became
yeah.
the Bank of the King at the end of the 16th century. And so, like, they've persisted for centuries, and they're gonna persist for millennia to come, based on all that they've accrued because of their pioneering of this parasitic system.
But surely even they recognize, and I take your point, right? That they are thinking generationally, right? They've passed things down at least the last what 10 generations at this point, right? Almost 5 or 10.
Yeah, something like
Um,
that. Yeah.
but each generation is dealing with a world that's spiraling further and further out of control. So surely, if they are thinking generationally, they would recognize the pattern, saying, "Okay, you know what? Maybe my son and daughter are going to be okay with my parasitic behavior, but what about their kids and their grandkids? Clearly the pattern is not heading to a good place."
But would you rather, if you're a satanic, pedophile, goat worshiper?
Shape-shifting lizard,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Would you
yeah,
rather have all of this stuff in a super chaotic world, or significantly less stuff in a stable world? And sadly, I think the people involved in this stuff, who care so much about these sort of worldly riches and worldly possessions, and sacrificing kids literally and figuratively to demons, I think they care more about amassing all of this stuff in a chaotic world than like
yeah,
a stable environment for their 15th generation kids. But
yeah. I've heard that argument before, Brandon. I'm not sure what to make of it,
I'm not sure I'm
which is
right.
when
I'm just
I
throwing
know,
out
no, no.
ideas here. Yeah, yeah,
I know, I
yeah.
know, I know that we're just sort of throwing things out there. But I've heard the argument of when I make a similar case, someone tells me, "Yeah, but you're acting like they're human beings. What if these are not, what if these are demonic entities that you're?" And I'm like, "Look, what am I supposed to do with that argument?
Yep.
Yes, it's uh, so yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say to something that I can't empirically prove, which is we're talking about lizards here. Well, okay, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, not even necessarily lizards being maybe a little hyperbolic there, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
definitely a spiritual battle of good and evil, whether
yeah,
you believe in, God or not. Everyone has their own sort of moral code, their yin and yang, their dark and light, whatever you want to call it, and those are in constant conflict with each other. And I would say there's probably some cohort of people that would indulge more in the dark, to have sort of the world, vainglory, if you will,
yeah.
for themselves and their family, as opposed to a more sort of altruistic social cohesion path to walk down.
Yeah, yeah, and look, in fairness, right? I don't mean to be flippant about any of this stuff. I guess the way I would look at it, just trying to put my engineer rationalist hat on, is when people say things like demonic entities and shape shifting lizards and all of that stuff. I view it as anthropomorphizing, uh,
Anthrop-
you know,
Anthropomorphizing.
anthropomorphizing sort of the darker elements of human nature and giving them a form just to create that metaphoric flow in a conversation. So when you say lizard, what you're really talking about are the dark emotions that you're putting a form to, that you can that represents, right, that gives you a visceral reaction uh, when you think about it. Um, no, but then just going back to that, it's unclear to me what the end game here is in people's minds, right? Like, forget the Rothschilds for a second. Let's think about the U.S. government, right? It's like the politicians. Surely they've got to recognize that this is a parasitic system, and that the end game is its own death, because the host will die. Um, and yet, maybe it's because they just don't care. They're like, well, I'm going to be dead by the time any of the blowback appears.
I think that's what it is personally. I think it's the I got mine, I'm getting mine. I mean, I think that's what's going on right now. I think we're just in the loot the capital stage of the nation, and you look at all the people coming into power, they're just wildly unimpressive people. Just some of the dumbest, most insane people you've ever seen, and it's like this is how I'm going to get mine. And I really do. I sadly think that's what it is. And I know we give a lot of crap to the boomers, and rightfully so. And they're kind of just content. Like, I think if you gave them the choice of, hey, you're 84, and if you give up your social security, your grandchildren will live in a stable society, they would say, screw you, I want my social security. Like, I really believe that would be their response. If you said, you're not going to have guaranteed government checks for the rest of your days on this earth, but your grandkids will live in a much better world. Sadly, I think the majority would take the former option. I really believe that to be true.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I suspect you're right.
which is sad and depressing. But also, back to weave this back to Bitcoin, that's why you have to align the incentives, right? Because people will just pursue the incentives, and when you have perverse incentives, that's what people will pursue. And the only way you can fix all this stuff, to not fix but improve upon the current status of things, is to align those incentives to get people to act in a manner that they're acting for the benefit of society without even knowing it. They're selfishly acting, which was kind of Ayn Rand's big thing, right? Like, you acting selfishly is the altruism, is the social cohesion, is the social good, to use the Atlas Shrugged phrase. That
Yeah.
you are actually manifesting that through your own selfish desires, and that's why you have to get the incentives to align that way, because that's all people are going to do. People are weak. People aren't bad, they aren't good by nature, they're kind of just weak. And courage is something that's rare, and that's just the way we are. And that's why people look to leaders and look for direction, because they're weak, they're individually weak, and maybe they won't admit that to themselves. But I mean, look at COVID, right? I mean, everyone just went along to get along. I don't My guess is 70% of society knew it was bullshit. Like, are you seriously going to tell me that I need to walk into this restaurant with my mask on, then I get to sit down, take it off, and then when the waiter comes by, I got to put it on, and then when the waiter leaves, I can take it off, but then when I go to the bathroom, I got to put it on? There's no way anyone believed that was doing anything, but they were just weak, and they just said, screw it, I'm just going to go along to get along. I don't want to be bothered, I don't want to be pushed back against. And humanity is just generally weak, and that's why the COVID stuff worked so well on us.
But here's on that topic of the masks. This is a thought that struck me, which I've never really received a clear answer to. You walk into an elevator without a mask. Someone walks in with a mask, and they're like, "Oh, you got to put a mask on." And then your response ought to be, clearly what's missing here is a second mask in your mind. So why don't you put the second mask on, and we'll be done here, right? Like, what is the flaw in this, Brandon? There is
Well,
none,
that
right?
no, of course not. There's no the everything was so absurd. It was logical. Reality didn't work. I mean, I remember specifically sitting down with someone pointing to the CDC's website on on the filtration size of a mask, how what size it could filter out through airborne particles, and then going to the COVID size on the same CDC website, and it was like 14 times smaller. And
Yeah,
me going, how do you think this math works? And they would, well, if I mean, like the stuff you would hear, I mean, like it, there was no logical answer. Like it was all complete superstition. And again, back to people just being like, I'm being told this is the quote unquote consensus, and I'm weak. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to
yeah.
push back against it. I don't want to get in an argument. I don't want to stand up for anything. I'm just weak, and I don't want to deal with it.
I think that is it, which is a lot of these authorities, right, like the government, they rely on the average person's complete lack of desire to pick a confrontation.
100%.
And I think, and that works. And that works. And the way you, again, as an authority, the way you can make that even easier on yourself is to provide all the anesthetics, right? That nonsense TV shows that completely numb the brain, bread and circuses. Make start legalizing certain drug. Look, set aside the whole philosophy behind the drug debate, but there is a case to be made that if you want a numb population, then you start legalizing some of these anesthetics that start dulling the edges, the desire to actually stand up for yourself. So you increase the creature comforts so that the people are distracted. On top of it, you, as an authority, as a power that be, you rely on just the natural aversion of most decent human beings to take on a confrontation. And I think that works up to a point. Uh,
It does.
and
And yes.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And then you reach a break, and then you have 50,000 Australians in the street, like
yeah,
threatening to burn some buildings down, and then things change, or a Canadian
yeah,
trucker protest, and bridges being blocked, and yeah, you reach a breaking point, and then things change.
yeah,
But it
yeah. And
is
we
when.
saw, I think,
Go ahead.
go
Sorry.
ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
It's and we've seen that time and again. Yeah, like you were saying, the trucker protest was one thing. What happened in Australia, and it's a constant dance that the government tries to. Let's see how far it can push these guys. I've got to say, Brandon, I think it's the pushing point is moving further and further. I mean, in the wrong direction. Like people are getting more and more, I guess, inured to the egregious violations of their liberties, and the government is getting bolder. Now there are obviously exceptions, right? There are the radicals who get radicalized every time, but on the majority side, I just think people are getting more numb.
I couldn't agree more. And there were, COVID, quote unquote, woke a lot of people up. But then those same people can't wait to have all the data on their phone leaked. Can't wait to give KYC on every single thing they do. Get their digital ID. You know, uh, Abide by whatever hate speech laws you can't say against Israel. So like all these people that quote unquote figured out what is going on are somehow just continuing down the same path of giving in to authoritarianism, giving in to tyranny, because it's not in their face. They're still able to get on a plane. You just have to have 19 forms of ID. You can't have water. You scan your face. You're on 800 video cameras. You have federal agents touching you, and you go through cancer screeners, and all this stuff that's like, well, it's I'm still able to get on a plane, right? And I'm still able to go here. It may be a huge headache, maybe a huge hassle. They may be training AI on my face and how I walk and
Oh yeah.
things like that, but I still get to go do what I want to do. And so it's people woke up, but they didn't learn any lessons. It's like, oh, I see what's going on. I'm not going to do anything about it.
Well, some of these transgressions are beautifully disguised as comforts, right? Like you're talking about giving up your privacy and so on. So I'll give you an example here um, from my very recent past, like a couple, in fact, weirdly enough, a week before the war broke out, I was transiting through Dubai with my family, and we had a 12-hour break. And we're like, look, Dubai airport is nice, but let's just go check out downtown Dubai. Amazingly, it was just 5 days later that the places where we were getting bombed. But anyway,
Same.
that's not where I'm
Yep.
that's not where I'm going. It's like, so we're like, okay, let's exit out. We walk out of the flight, go towards the airport exit, and then we see a turnstile, and like, yeah, just go through the turnstile. I was like, uh, and then the security check is after that, right? The immigration check or whatever. They're like, yeah, don't worry about it. So when there's the turnstile, it says scan your passport. I was like, okay, fine, I'll scan my passport. Scanned it. Uh, there's a camera there. It takes your photo, which I didn't even see. It's so well hidden. And then the gates open. I'm out. I'm like, okay, let's go to the immigration now. And they say, no, that's the immigration. That was the so once I was
Wow.
past that turnstile with a scan of my passport and a photo of my face, which I didn't even see, by the way,
Yeah.
them doing it. And you had people, and I was overhearing there was a couple of other American families who'd just gone past us, and it's like, this is so great. This is the best immigration experience ever. Yeah,
Yeah.
but did you notice the turnstile opened after taking a photo of your face? So it knows everything about you. Probably even knows your DNA sequence at this point.
Yeah. Your whole travel itinerary,
Yeah.
everyone in your family. Yeah. I mean, it's it's just constant and just literally everything on your phone is designed to be easier to steal your data from you. And this is nothing new. And what's crazy is this has been going on for a while, right, Avi? Like we had Julian Assange with the WikiLeaks. We had Snowden come out. We had it's just endless. The 9/11 stuff, the war in Iraq, lie, fake, lie, fake, lie, fake, and it's just like, oh no, but they're serious about the nuke in Iran this time. Definitely, that's
Oh,
true, and it's just the amount of cases of the government lying, of us being deceived, of us being taken advantage of just keeps mounting. And we just continue to be sort of this passive, do the next thing they ask of us. I mean, like it was easier to get $10,000 out of my bank account in 2010 than it is in 2026, like without a doubt. And $10,000 today is worth, I don't know, $4,000 in 2010. And like it was way easier to get money out, to do stuff. I mean, just even have you tried to open a checking account recently? Uh, the amount of stuff that they need from you is just it's unbelievable. And people just keep going along, keep going in. So I sadly I agree with you. It's almost as if the information and examples of our trust being betrayed just it doesn't even matter. Like it could be infinite. It could just be 10 trillion times and it still won't matter. Like things um there's the I think it was Matt Odell who said it, or kind of brought it into the Bitcoin sphere, that um the the ruggings will continue until self custody improves, right? Like something seriously negative has to happen to you to wake you up. Something like losing your job for not getting experimental injection, or getting kicked out of a grocery store because you didn't put a piece of cloth on your face. Like, actual things have to happen to people, as opposed to sort of unseen, unknown, um, non-tangible, like intangible things can't happen to people. It doesn't matter how many times intangible things happen to people. It has to be tangible and have an effect. It's the same thing. I'm curious how you think about this, but I've from the beginning said that Nostr will never succeed until people get kicked off of the other platforms. Like, it's going to take a mass. Like, if Nostr existed in 2021, we may have had a better chance, actually, like, than it coming to where, like, I wish Nostr was in its current form today in 2020. Like, that would have been, I think that would have been a much better experiment. But until you get that sort of tangible push off of other platforms, I just don't think people see the need for a Nostr. They don't see the value in it.
By the way, can you hear the lawnmower behind me? It's kind of loud.
I
I
actually
hope that's
can,
okay.
so you're
Oh,
good.
good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Max voice isolation mode to the rescue then.
Nice. It's working.
It's working. I think for Nostr adoption, I completely agree with that, by the way. And there are many times I lay in bed wishing that Nostr had been around back then when everyone was getting kicked off. And I think it's going to take something like that, unfortunately.
Same.
I mean, why would there be why would people want to come to Nostr otherwise? To listen to a bunch of Bitcoiners telling them to have fun staying poor, or posting photos of steak? Maybe they'll come for the steak, but yeah,
They
it's
should come for the pictures of steak. I got
yeah,
plenty of them
yeah,
for
yeah.
you guys. Come on over.
Nostr is a great place right now if you're a Bitcoiner and you're plugged into the world. All the memes make sense. Everything is good. I think the next wave of adoption, and this is what I've been trying to do, and I'm sort of beginning to lick my wounds a little bit, is with the cultural artist layer. Maybe we will see some of that with the musicians and with the integration between Fountain and all of that. But I think I tend to agree with you. If you're looking for the next big wave of adoption, we need a massive global event. It can't just be a localized event like, oh, Twitter got banned in Brazil. Well, yeah, then they'll go to Blue Sky, right?
Yeah.
Or they'll go to Mastodon or whatever it is. It needs to be something at the level of, there is this crazy thing happening in the world right now, and all of these platforms basically are mouthpieces of the uniparty. And if you are a dissenting voice, you will get shut down in a cascade, right? I mean, during the pandemic, I remember having this conversation with folks. It never came to it, but it could have. One, you can get banned at the platform level, right? So the platform itself bans you. Then you go to the next platform. But if you're saying enough controversial things, that app, the platform, which is an app on an app store like the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, it can be banned at the App Store level. They have the tools to do it. And I think we did see an example. I think Parler was one of them, right? That got banned at by the Apple App Store. Okay, then you make a progressive web app. Well, then you can be blocked at the DNS level, right? And then finally at the IP level. So there are many. We didn't see those things cascade upwards. Thankfully it ended there at the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. But there are all sorts of tools people have in their toolbox if they want to silence your voice. But I think if we have a a COVID level event, and I don't hope for it because it sucked. Those 2 years were absolutely horrible years.
Yes.
I mean, and especially if you have kids, Brandon. I mean, it just.
I didn't at the time. I can't even imagine if
Oh
I had
yeah.
my 14-month running around at that point in time. I just
Yeah.
yeah.
It's 2 years of their childhood completely sucked out. So I don't wish for that. I'm just making the abstract point, which is it will take something like that where the uniparty really there is a singular message that needs to be conveyed. Any dissent cannot be tolerated. And at that point, right, X equals blue sky equals Facebook equals TikTok, all of them will fall in line. And the one that won't is Nostr.
Yeah, and well, look at it. I mean, how many people have lost their account on X or been booted off X or whatever? They come over to Nostr, and you're like, "Oh, this person's posting on Nostr. That's weird." It's like, "Oh, I've been kicked off X," or "Oh, something happened over there," and then you see a note, "My account's been restored," and then you don't hear from them for another year. It's like they can't
Yeah.
wait to get back to their gated permission $9.99 a month platform. So it's like they love it and they want to be back there, and I just don't think I I just don't think, yeah, like you said, without some sort of singular event where you have a mass censorship or a mass failure even. I don't know what that would look like necessarily. Maybe the credit card you have linked to Twitter to pay your monthly subscription, like everyone gets charged $10,000 and there's no recourse or something. I don't know. Some event like that or something like that will have to happen to everybody to bring that next big wave, like you said. But
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, and people love their comfort, and people they love outsourcing their personal responsibility. It's just unfortunately another thing I've been coming to the conclusion of is that you're just not going to make people care. Like, it doesn't matter. It's been 12 years since Snowden told everyone in the United States, and the government is basically tracking every single thing you do, and no one really cares. Why?
Yeah.
Because the SWAT team hasn't showed up to their door.
Yeah.
Because UK is starting to learn their lessons the hard way now, and hopefully that doesn't happen here in the
Yeah.
United States. But that's what it's going
Well,
to take. Yeah.
there's two sides of it, right? Which we touched on. One, the SWAT team hasn't shown up at the door, but let's not discount the power of bread and circuses, the societal anesthetics that are rolled out freely.
Yeah. I mean, back to COVID again. It was like the two things that never closed were the liquor store and the weed store. Those were
We
those were always open. So,
And the fast food as
oh, and the
well.
fast food, yeah, of course. Um,
Yeah.
oh man, Avi, we'll definitely have to do this again because I could talk to you for another 4 hours, and I hope we'll get a chance to do that in Las Vegas, along with some other Nostriches and some other good
Yeah.
Bitcoiners. But I did have one last thing I wanted to ask you. I was listening to your Sunday brunch with Buttercup Roberts, and you guys were talking about directors, and you mentioned some more independent international directors, but I wanted to get your thought. And I love the fact you said Chris Nolan and Tarantino. I love both, and the fact you guys brought up Memento. That's one of my favorite. When
Hmm.
someone asks me like, "What's a movie I probably haven't seen that I should watch?" I tell them Memento. Like,
Hmm.
you will love that movie. It's incredible, and for whatever reason, it's kind of a cult classic. It never
Oh
really
yeah.
caught the mainstream. I don't know why. I think it's Chris Nolan's best movie,
Oh yeah.
by far.
Tenet is
But
close.
uh,
I like
Tenet
Tenet,
is
and
really good too. I love Tenet
yeah,
too. I actually just
yeah,
watched that last year for the first time, but I do love that movie as well. But I wanted to get your thoughts on Guy Ritchie. What do you
oh
think
yeah,
about him?
oh yeah, yeah. Lock, stock. I mean, he's like the British Tarantino, right? Lock,
Yeah,
stock,
yeah.
two
Okay,
smoking
got it.
barrels.
Yeah,
He did Snatch. He was
Snatch.
Snatch
Oh
too,
yeah,
right?
oh yeah,
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Snatch is one of my
Yeah.
favorites as well.
Yeah. No, Guy Ritchie's great. Yeah.
Yeah, he actually just put out a new series, Young Sherlock, and definitely
Oh
worth watching. So yeah, the dialogue is I love the action, I love the filmography, I love the storylines, everything, but the dialogue is just a 10 out of 10. Something about that accent and the witticisms and the dry humor. I love
yeah.
every second of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fellow film buff. We should. Here's the okay. I know we can. This conversation can go on, but just one quick. I probably shouldn't stop on a negative note, but I'll just get this in, and maybe I'll find one last positive thing to say. Man, the quality of film in the last 10, 15
Oh, don't
years
even
is
get me
just,
started.
yeah.
I'm sitting next to my giant DVD collection that I'm having an existential
Yeah.
crisis about throwing out.
Yeah.
But it's getting hard to justify having them. But to that point, I declared I declared 2015 the peak, or
Yeah.
not the peak, but like the beginning of the decline. Like
Yeah.
that's where we really started to go off the rails, and cinema's just it just hasn't been the same. It's I mean, you'll get a good movie here or there, but I mean, you
Yeah.
really got to dig to find a diamond in the rough. And I remember like early 2000s, late night, it just felt like it was like banger after banger after banger. And
Golden age. Oh
golden,
yeah.
even mainstream movies were good, like
Yeah.
now the mainstream stuff it's just
Yeah.
drivel.
Well, I mean, 2015, obviously we did have a few, like Tenet was post 2015. I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood
Oh
is
yeah.
post 2015.
Oh, for
But
sure. There's
yeah.
there's some great ones in there. Don't get me wrong. There's
Yeah.
some movies I really enjoyed, but for the most part, and
Oh
sort
yeah.
of generally speaking, yeah, it's been awful.
For sure.
All, all right, Avi, this has been great. Thank you for your time today. Where should people check you out? What do you want them to take a look at, and any
Yeah.
teasers or anything you want to give about work coming up for you?
Yeah, I mean, so the easiest way to find stuff about me is just to go to my website, casanostra.inc, I-N-K, and Casa Nostra, as straightforward spelling. That's my website. It has all my work there. You can find the links to my books, to my podcast, my TV show, Finding Home. The two things that are coming out, one is the Finding Home episode 4. This one was Roger 9000. I traveled to London and Manchester. So that's coming out in a week or two. It'll be up on Indie Hub. You can watch that there. Plebgen Radio, as I said, I'll probably be scaling back. So don't expect 10 episodes a month going forward, probably 2, 3 maybe. Here's a challenge for the readers. Oh, sorry, for the listeners. Sorry, Brandon. I am writing a book under pseudonym. It's not a Bitcoin book. It'll probably be out in the next month or two. So here's a challenge. If you're so inclined, see if you can find it. See if you can find out what my pseudonym is.
Will there be a Sats bounty like your other two books?
No, they
No.
won't.
Okay. No Sats. Hidden in your pseudonym isn't 12 words.
No, it's a very I think it's well camouflaged. Now, if someone reads the book, and they've read my other two books, they'll see the
They'll be
parallels
able
in
to figure it out.
style.
Yeah.
They'll be able to figure it out. But yeah,
Awesome. Well, Avi, thank you again so much for your time. As always, you can check me out on Nostr at Plebianon, or you can check out Sovereign at SOVREIGN.io. That's the best place to get in touch with us. We do have a Twitter account, the much maligned Twitter on this episode, at Sovereign X, and we do have a LinkedIn and Instagram account as well. But just go to the website, SOVREIGN.io. Reach out to us directly. We'd much rather talk to you that way anyways. So appreciate your time today, Avi, and until next time, thank you.
thanks for having me.